good. It's all good here. Just you know, getting through this, getting through pandemic days as best we can.
How about we start with Jey Uso? How about that?
Sure, let's talk about our boy Jey Uso.
He had his match with Roman at Hell in a Cell. Um, they opened the show, right?
Yes, they did.
Which I was okay with. Um,
I was surprised by that. I was really surprised, but I think that
uh,
as I thought about it, I realized it did make sense once I gave it some thought.
yeah, I was not surprised with that one. I was surprised with Orton and McIntyre finishing closing the show because in my before anything happened, I knew they were gonna have the worst match out of the three. Even though it was good, all three matches were good, but I thought there's no way. We knew Jay and Roman had the story, and we knew Bayley and Sasha were gonna have the action, and Drew and Randy Orton probably should have been over when they had that damn ambulance gimmick. So I thought, and once I noticed that the Drew match was gonna go on last, I was like, oh, maybe they're doing the send people home happy thing gimmick. It's like, okay, Sasha actually won, so the baby face wins, and she's not even going on last. Then the heel wins at the end of the show, so that's still that. So none of it makes any sense now, but whatever. So Bayley and Sasha to me should have closed the show if they were gonna have the most action packed match, and you could have also closed out with the Roman Reigns thing, but it was a little bit sad and slow paced and more of an emotionally draining match. Like, it's supposed to bring you to tears almost. So it's tricky. I would have closed with Sasha Bayley. That's just my taste. And in hindsight, I would have closed with Sasha Bayley too. So, but either way, we're talking about Jey Uso here. So he loses to Roman. He's not forced to say I quit. Well, he is, but not because of anything that happened to him. Roman used his brother against him, which I liked. Considering this was the stipulation for the match, I thought before the match even started, I thought the only way to get out of this and Jay come out as a uber babyface. First of all, he can't quit. Babyfaces can't quit. And I don't want to see a knockout ref stoppage bullshit. No, I want if that's the gimmick, that's what we're going with. I quit. I want to hear someone say I quit. How do you get out of it? To me, they did it as best. Considering the stipulation, I think they got out of it nicely. I was okay with that finish. Using Jimmy choking him out and him reaching for his brother and Jay finally quitting because he's doing it for him. But now on SmackDown, Jay has a match with Daniel Bryan. Anyway, by the end of this the end of the whole little story, I guess it's full blown heel now. It beats the shit out of Daniel Bryan, leaves, comes back, beats the shit out of him some more. Which I thought was good. I thought, he needed it. Obviously, the whole point of this storyline was to get, to make Roman the leader of the family, but for the family to stay together. Jay didn't come off looking too bad after the Hell in a Cell. Like I said, he didn't quit. It's nothing because of himself. He quit for his brother, which still made him look good. Now he turns heel, so we don't got to deal with Jay and Roman anymore. He doesn't have to lose to Roman anymore, at least for now. So I think it's all good, man. I think they're doing good work. Roman's doing the best work of his career. Jay's probably doing the best work of his career too. So good for both of them. What does this mean for Daniel Bryan? I don't know. Let's see if he comes back to get some revenge in 2 or 3 weeks. That'll be cool. But how do you like it so far?
Well, I'm going to reiterate the same thing I said when we previewed the Hell in a Cell match. I thought that it was a hat on a hat, meaning when you have the Hell in a Cell gimmick and then you make it an I Quit match, you're really taking two completely different matches with two completely different concepts, and you're melding them together. If you wanted to make it an I Quit match, you didn't necessarily need the cage. If the whole goal was to tell the story of having Jey Uso quit to save his brother Jimmy, then there's no real need for the cage. The cage doesn't play a real important part in the match. I would have probably preferred to do the exact same match without the stipulation, meaning that Roman Reigns was gonna beat Jey Uso senseless, and when the referee tries to stop the match and Paul Lee tries to get him to back down, he basically says, no, no, no. Until he calls me the chief, this isn't gonna end. And that's how and then you layer it that way, to where then you could have had the same thing where, Jimmy tries to come in and help his brother. Roman Reigns just beats the pants out of him, and then he basically gets Jey Uso to say, okay, you're the chief. That was the whole story of the match. I think that having the I Quit stipulation as a stipulation as part of the match didn't make sense, because there were moments in the match where, under any other circumstances, the match would have ended. I've seen plenty of I Quit matches where, the guys, and I know that it's a cop out, but the guys don't say I quit because they pass out, but it's technically looked at as a submission. So there is, and there was a lot of, like I said, a lot of great emotional acting, a lot of really great fun stuff in that match. Ultimately, I had the same criticism of that match as I did of the first one, is that I thought that the ending was a little too dramatic, and it, they really extend the drama, as great as it was. But it almost like there's a moment where it stops being a wrestling match, and then it turns into a movie. And in that, even though it's still, I stayed with them the whole way, but it still feels like there's there's like a bit of Hollywood into that, a little too much. I didn't see the match with Jey Uso and Daniel Bryan, but I did see the aftermath of it. And essentially, Jey Uso pledged his allegiance to Roman Reigns, where he came out of his mouth and he said, "You're the head of the table," essentially saying, "You're the chief, you're the man." And he came out with it. He he basically pledged his allegiance to his cousin. So it's well done. Let's see where this goes moving forward. Whether or not we're going to see a story with Daniel Bryan, that'll be a good way to kind of bring him into the mix. I don't think, like I said, I don't think a match between Jey Uso and Daniel Bryan is the money match. Obviously, the money match is getting to Roman Reigns. And the thing is, Roman Reigns is going to need opponents until he ultimately gets whatever the big WrestleMania payoff is. We're presuming it's going to be The Rock, but we don't know that yet. But between now and then, he needs opponents. And, this is going to be a good way to give him an opponent, tell a story, for, a couple, let's say about a month or two, tell a good story, and continue getting these guys over as heels. Because now you have Roman Reigns, you have Jimmy Uso. I'm presuming Jey Uso is going to join. And I can only surmise that there's going to be more people in the Samoan lineage that are going to join up. So this is going to be probably the WWE's version of the Samoan dynasty. So let's see. This looks like it's got a lot of legs to it. We're only in the beginning, so I'm looking forward to what comes out of this particular program.
Yeah, and it's funny that it took so long to add lore to this family. They always talk about the family, but there's like no special, like, besides you can't headbutt a Samoan, there's really nothing to it, right? It's just like, oh, these guys are all part of this family, and that's cool. But now they're adding this. Okay, they're the chief. Someone needs to be at the head of the table, and everyone else needs to fall in line, whether you like it or not. At the end of the day, you do what's right for the family. Babyface, heel, that doesn't matter. The family comes first. And once you decide, so this is all, it's new, right? And it's interesting. And I like, I know you hear people say, well, why can't everyone do this type of storytelling? Well, that's not fair, right? Because the chips have to fall in place. It's not every day that you have family members that have this great lineage in wrestling, you can't really do this exact thing, right? This is special to them. You can only do it with them. It worked with Cody and Dustin and their brothers. So it's rare that you do get to tell these type of super emotional stories. Of course it can be done, but it's tricky, and it's much easier when you do have some reality.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree there. I think that what ends up happening is I'm a big believer in that with wrestling, the thing that kind of makes people care, stories like this will make you care because when you look at Roman Reigns, his presentation, the way he speaks, the way he works, everything is believable. Like what we're getting now, the Roman Reigns that we have today is probably the best version of Roman Reigns that we've seen because he's always been a good worker. He's always looked fantastic. He's always, when they allow him to speak in his own voice, not writing his promos, but letting him speak in his own voice, he's cool. He's a cool cat. Like I said, the women love him. The guys want to be like him. It's like that's the perfect combination, and he's got the Hollywood good looks. So it's a perfect package. Now, do I believe that it's fair to say that all the other guys should get stories just like that? Yeah, of course not. I get it. Because first of all, with all due respect, not every wrestler is as talented as Roman Reigns is. They don't have the same presentation. They don't have the same look, and yes, they don't have the same lineage, the family lineage that he does. So there's a lot of things that have to fall perfectly. But by that token, there's also many ways where you can take the biggest strengths of each talent and be able to present them in such a way that every performer, every wrestler, and their personas and the stories and the conflicts that are created can all complement one another and complement the fluidity of the show, that you as a audience member, you're invested and you care. Now, even if not every single story that's presented is to your liking, but there's a continuity to it, and when you look at it in the context of the whole, you're like, okay, whether I'm in love with every segment of the show, as a whole, I can say this is very good. So what they're doing with the Samoans right now is excellent.
All right, so then now there's Bayley and Sasha story. It's gotten tricky for me. I did not see this coming. I did not see Sasha beating Bayley on the first attempt at all. It looks like I don't know how long they planned on dragging this. I was hoping as long as possible. I was hoping they wouldn't even have that damn match.
Yeah, I know. You said
I'm still hoping because they just announced that they're gonna fight next week for the title. So Sasha, who usually loses it right after the pay-per-view, didn't wrestle or is not wrestling right now. Oh no, they're on SmackDown, right? They didn't wrestle on Friday for the title, but Bayley challenged her, whatever. We'll fight next week, and you'll have your whatever 14, 13-day reign, whatever 2-week reign, and then you'll lose it like you always do, which is still a possibility. Which I kind of want to happen, but I want it to happen if they're going to take Sasha out, out of the picture for a couple of months. I do not want this rushed.
See
I
that
do not want this rushed at all. This is rushed. Second match already.
Well, here's the thing that gets me about this story. Does it make sense that Bayley, wants to get her rematch? The answer is yes, because in pro wrestling, we're always conditioned about the rematch clause and whatever have you. The former champ usually gets first dibs at the title, after he or she loses. So that makes sense, right? Do I want to see them rematch this soon? The answer is no, only because for Bayley, I think that if you give Sasha Banks a reign where she gets to work with the other women on the roster and be able to kind of establish herself as a champion without ever rematching against Bayley, this gives Bayley a ton of fodder. It gives her a ton of material to use to basically call her a paper champion, right? Hey, you beat me once, now you beat all the women on the SmackDown roster, but I'm the only one that's not getting my rematch. yeah, it seems like a babyface thing to do, but if she's able to cut a heel promo, knowing that she's basically saying, I want a rematch, I want a rematch, I want a rematch, but she doesn't really want a rematch. She wants Sasha to work against all the other girls, get her tired, get her beat up, and then she gets a rematch. So you can use that level of psychology. The problem is with the SmackDown women's roster at the moment is that there doesn't seem to be anyone, like once you get past Bayley and Sasha, it looks kind of slim. Even though you got a lot of talented women on the roster, they're not really well positioned at the moment. And that's kind of the issue, is that these two women, Bayley and Sasha, are so well positioned, and their work has been impeccable. Working together both as a tag team unit and now working as opponents. That when you think about separating them, it almost feels like I don't want to do that. It's just like, because you're thinking, what's the next best match? If we break them up, what's the next best match? And I know it shouldn't be that way. You should just be like, hey, build all the other women, and you got to be able to tell your B and C stories underneath, so that eventually when you break these two up, there's got to be someone in line. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's anyone currently in line that the audience can look at and say, yeah, I want to see this match. The match that's going to happen at the Survivor Series between Asuka and Sasha is not a new match. We just saw it this past summer at I believe it was SummerSlam that we saw that match. So it doesn't feel like it makes a lot of sense. It's not a special match. It's not new, but knowing that Sasha's a babyface, maybe it's you tell a different type of match. I would be of the ilk in that, Survivor Series is about 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks away. I would probably hold off Bayley and Sasha rematching at least until after the Survivor Series. So we're talking late November, early December, when I would even consider rematching them, because I want to be able to get to the Survivor Series match with the intent that Bayley cost Sasha the match at the Survivor Series, and then that's the impetus to kind of get them to their next match in December. But unfortunately, the television rolls on, and if they're going to put the match on Fox on SmackDown, then they're going to have to find the best match. And unfortunately, for the two of them, and maybe for us as the fans, this is really the best women's matchup one-on-one on SmackDown that they have. And that's WWE creative. That's the fault of WWE creative, because they got a lot of talented women on that roster.
This is, and I don't know if it was done on purpose or not, whether they realize it or not, it's literally the best possible woman story that they can have, in my opinion. Best matchup, even if it's Charlotte, Ronda, Becky, them against each other, with the idea of breaking them up, is the best possible match, storyline wise, and probably in ring. That obviously Charlotte can get in there with each of them and kill it too.
Of course.
But these two girls have amazing chemistry. I've seen them have probably the best women's match of all time in NXT, and they damn near did it twice. So I know what they're capable of. And that was how many years ago? 4 or 5?
5 years ago.
5 years ago, they had probably the best women's match of all time. I'd imagine that they're better now. So
of course, there's no way they wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, it's just getting reps in. Anybody, you get reps, you're gonna get better. And they've been workhorses in the women's division for a long time now.
I will say this for both of them. I mean, I agree with your position on, the more reps you get, the better you get. But it's also a matter, like, these two women have very special talent. Again, I always used to say that Sasha Banks was the best women's worker in WWE, just because I thought that she could do heel and babyface better than anybody else. Bayley now is in that same category, because before, when I only saw Bayley as the smiling 12-year-old, babyface type character, that was a wonderful character for the kids in the crowd. But obviously, that kind of plays itself out. And having this version of Bayley, even though it was rocky in the beginning, but my goodness, over the last 6 months or so, her work has just been impeccable. It just keeps getting better and better and better as a heel. And the thing is, again, this is the best possible matchup currently on the SmackDown Women's roster, but you have to find a way to separate them so that you can have some longevity. The longevity of this story is not going to be them working with each other every week, every week. It's a matter of always keeping that story. That's the preeminent story, but at the same time, you got to put other obstacles in front of them to keep them separated, and so also as a means to feature the other women, because sometimes even in defeat, those other women can still look great working against them, and then the audience can kind of pay attention to some of these other women on the roster because they have a lot of really talented women. They really do.
Okay, and we had Randy Orton beat Drew McIntyre, which which is fine. I always say if even Randy Orton, even if he's getting a little older, I don't necessarily care about that because that guy is probably going to work another 7 or 8 years. So it's not like he's going
Longer than
anywhere.
that. Longer than that.
Maybe longer, maybe 10 or 12. But he's not going anywhere. He's earned it. He's done a great job this year, and you can always get Drew back to the title. There's nothing. This does not hurt Drew, in my opinion. And I think you reward those who, if someone's killing it, you take advantage. Randy's killing it right now. Take advantage of that. And eventually, if Drew gets him back, or if you use Randy to get somebody else going, and then Drew goes after them, you can always get Drew can always get it back. Drew's not going anywhere. Randy's not going anywhere. So I think you take advantage. You use Randy. I don't know what now. It looks like the Fiend is involved because the Fiend's coming after Randy, but Drew's not done going after Randy. Miz is Money in the Bank, and apparently he's coming after Randy. So
Well, one thing is not like the others, with all due respect,
It's not, but Money in the Bank is the easiest way to go about it. I'd imagine that they put it on him for a reason. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, when he beat Otis, again, the most interesting part of it was that Tucker turned on Otis. Obviously, it's just they separated the team, which kind of seems really silly because you'd figure that that's an easy story to tell. Mm-hmm. But now they move Tucker over to Raw, and now it's like, okay, so you basically split them up. We get no real payoff, at least not initially. This will be something that can be paid off later on. Listen, the Miz with the Money in the Bank is really in no different position than when Otis had it. The only difference is that maybe we as maybe we as the audience can see the Miz cashing it in, where Otis, it just felt like it was a toy that he was carrying around. With the match with McIntyre and Orton, it made all the sense in the world. Orton had to win that match. If he didn't, then it's like he's lost 4 times in a row. Now, do I think that match should have taken place? The answer is no. But the thing was, unfortunately, with Drew McIntyre is that they had no opponents for him. So it was like, okay, we have to continue this with Orton. We'll put it in the cage. We'll have Orton go over. He wins the title. Now, when we introduce the Fiend, it just, again, there just seems to be with the Fiend, it almost seems like there's no real clear direction with him. Because the week before, he was basically introduced as a heel on Raw. Then he basically worked an angle beating up Retribution, which seems like a babyface thing to do. And then the Hurt Business was looking at him kind of funny. And I'm like, all right, what's going on here? And now the very next week, that's all forgotten. And now the Fiend is going after Randy Orton and the WWE title. It's like, all right, am I, what am I to believe here? It just kind of seems like there's a little bit of schizophrenic booking around him. And this is where I keep saying all the time that less is more with the Fiend. He's just a character that he really shouldn't be on TV every week, because unless he's going to beat everybody, and unless he's just going to be literally a monster and just beat everybody and squash everybody, then there's no point in having him work a program with guys like Orton and Drew McIntyre, because the whole idea is that he comes after them, beats them the first time around because he gets into their heads, and then those guys can come back and slay the beast. But until the way that this story is being told, it just kind of, at least the first part of it, it's like, all right, it just almost seems like it's 3 guys being paired together, and it's like, realistically, the Fiend would have to win in order to keep some kind of momentum going. But I'm not a big fan of him being the champion. I just think that he's the kind of persona that doesn't need the title. If he has it, it's going to do more harm than good for him, because eventually he has to drop the title, and when he does, he has to lose cleanly. So, there's a lot going on there. As great as he is, he shouldn't be in the main event chasing after any championships. I just don't see it at the moment.
Well, I think he's in here to make this feud interesting, because it's no longer interesting and it's going to keep going.
I guess
it's going to keep going, and he's not going to win or lose. He's going to be the middleman. So I don't see him taking any pins, and I don't see him winning the title.
Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing when you really think about it at the end of the day?
I mean, it's not necessarily good, but like you said, it's difficult to book him. That's what happens when you make these type of characters. And Bray's it's so tricky, because you talk about mic work, character work, like just the look, the presentation, all that stuff is 100% money. His matches are so weird. They can be good, but they're usually not, because it's almost like you make up a set of guidelines or rules for this character. This is what this character is, and then you can't stick to that forever. But you don't even stick to it for a year. You like change up what his abilities are a month in, 2 months in, and you mess it up. Now you kind of, it's like, it's very inconsistent. It makes it very difficult to I love seeing his work, and I wish there was somebody smart enough to figure out how to book this guy. Well, I don't think they have I don't think they have someone in the back that can figure out the right way to book him. When he won, he probably should have held that title for a year and a half, 2 years, and lose to somebody very, very special. And that person would have been very, very, very special once he got that win. But you had to do that without going into that Seth Rollins type match where Seth Rollins had to murder him, and it still wasn't enough. All that craziness, and then him losing to Goldberg, it really, really ruined everything. And now we kind of don't know what this character really is. It's just a fun character to watch, and it's pretty much ruined. And now we kind of don't want to see Bray Wyatt matches. That's what it feels like. It's really it kind of sucks.
I think it feels to me like with Bray Wyatt. And again, this goes back to the whole thing that we talked about with this past year at WrestleMania, when he worked against John Cena, where with the Firefly Funhouse matches, like there was a series of matches that he had to win, and that he had to win convincingly in order to establish his persona. Obviously we said Cena, I believe we said Goldberg and The Undertaker, right? Those are guys that he needed to beat. And I honestly think that it was like, all right, if he beat Cena, which that wasn't even a wrestling match, so we can't even call it a win. It was just, I don't know what the hell that was. But if it was some semblance of a wrestling match and he would have beaten Cena, it would have made sense, right? You get that first big win, then you get your win against Goldberg back, and you beat him emphatically. And then you tease The Undertaker. The whole idea would be is just like, all right, The Undertaker has to retire at some point, right? If he decided, like, I don't want to do this anymore, yeah, it sucks to see a guy like that go down on his shield, because you want to see The Undertaker go out on top. But if you're going to lose and you're going to go down, who better than to hand that over to Bray Wyatt, and you be like, yo, if there was any one guy that could stop him, it's going to be The Undertaker, right? The Undertaker can stop him. And no, The Undertaker goes down. And then you can start putting the belts on him, and then you tell that story where he's champion for a year or two, and you just make him the unstoppable force, the unstoppable monster. But again, a lot of what they've done, it's just been a lot of rushed booking. It hasn't worked for him, and it's to the point now where it's like, when I see him, anytime they want to book him in like top flight programs, I'm always saying like, no. Has nothing to do with his skills or his talent. Has nothing to do with that. It's just a matter that the positioning, it almost seems like it doesn't make sense the day after. You know, it's like, all right, if he wins the championship, okay, so what do we do? The whole program is somebody's going to beat him, and if you're not gonna book him to be your long-term champion, then what? You understand? So it just kind of seems like I understand why they put it. You know, it puts a lot of color literally into this program, but not the best move. At least not chapter one of this story. I'm not impressed, and I'm not really looking forward to seeing whatever comes out of this. Quite frankly, if it's a triple threat match or if it's a group of one-on-one matches, maybe. But if it's a triple threat match, no.
Okay. Enough of that.
Yes, please.
All right. How about we preview Full Gear?
Yeah. All right.
There's some matches. I think every match has already been named, unless they're gonna sneak in another one, which is possible because they have 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like 6 matches right now.
There's gonna be more than that.
Maybe because these matches have. Looking at these matches, you're gonna see that these can be long matches.
So not all of them should be. Not all of them should be.
Not all of them should be, but a lot of them. It's hard for me. If I was timing out this pay-per-view, I'd be a little stressed out.
Well, thankfully you're not.
I'm not. Okay, yeah, I don't get paid that much. All right, Elite Deletion match. This is gonna probably be a 10-minute match because it's probably gonna be one of these cinematic matches. Hardy versus Guevara. Who you got?
I don't care.
You
don't care. Listen, this is God. This is really something that I just want to end. I didn't care about Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara when they were in it. Then, the whole Matt Hardy debacle in the last pay-per-view. I don't want to see this match. I don't care. I sincerely don't.
Okay, well, I think Sammy's going to win. Okay, AEW Women's World Title match. Nyla Rose versus Shida. I think Nyla Rose is going to win.
I hope so. I
think it's a good time. It's a good time. Shida had her run. I think it's time to give it back to the beast and move on.
Yes, and all I know is that with the AEW women's roster, there's a lot wrong with it, and some of it is based on the greenness of the talent, but that is not their fault. They're doing the best job they can. It's a matter of you have to have some kind of veteran, talent leadership that can be in there and lead in, be the leader in the ring. I don't think that they have that right now. To put the title on Nyla Rose, that's totally fine. But at this point, it's amazing to me because Nyla Rose is just such an easy character to book in my eyes. When you tell the story, bringing her up, and AEW's botched it time and time again. So, if they put the title on her, that's a good first step. Because, like I said, I like Hikaru Shida. She's all right, but she ain't gonna draw a dime in this country. And realistically, I think Nyla Rose can. So it's time to put the title on her and actually present her the way that she should be presented, as the Beast and destroying everybody. And then if you're going to present the challenger, it's got to be somebody who you present, who AEW purposely says, we're going to present this person and we're going to put them on TV. We're going to have them win. We're going to present them as a babyface and as a credible challenger that you tell over a certain period of time, to where once that match happens with Nyla Rose, we as the audience care.
Okay. We have Kenny versus Hangman. This is a very, very important match. This is a long build to this match. And the winner of this match is probably your next champ. I'd say 70, 80%, maybe even 90% chance that the winner of this match goes on to beat Jon Moxley very, very, very soon. I don't even want to say the next pay-per-view, because that's probably 2 or 3 months away. It's probably in 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
That's going to happen on television. in all honesty, when Moxley loses the title, it's weird for me to say this because I generally don't like saying this, but it probably work better if it's on television.
So I got Kenny. Just the first year of AEW, you have that short rivalry with Kenny and John. John beating Kenny. John moves on. He's like the champion, and been champion ever since. Never looked back. Kenny was a babyface at the time. Kenny turns full blown heel. He's already a heel. We know that. He's giving you every clue in the book that he's a heel. But I think he's going to be very nasty at the end of this match towards Adam Page. Something's got to give. It can't. I don't think a win is enough. I think there needs to be a beatdown after the match, or he has to cheat during the match, or something. Something needs to happen that it says, here's the exclamation point. This is the end of this for now. I'm the heel. Hangman's the babyface. No confusion. Kenny wins, though, goes on to win that title very, very soon.
Listen, I think that the best case scenario is for Kenny Omega to win this match for all the reasons that you just laid out. I guess for me, it's a matter of the way that Kenny Omega has been presented. I understand that these guys, they basically play with a different set of colors. They write their show and do their stuff differently. The thing is, and again, this is going to come across as a knock on Kenny Omega, but it's really not. It's more of just an observation on my part, is that he's coming across as a heel, but it has nothing to do with the way that he works. It just has to do with the fact that he's being overly obnoxious in terms of how he's being introduced and all that stuff. And the thing is that they're trying to put all these little layers and all these little crumbs to kind of reveal that he's a heel. There is, at least for me, there's no need to put those crumbs, because the crumbs have to be laid out in such a way that it becomes more and more subtle. It just seems like when the issues were happening with Hangman, it almost seemed like that heel turn happened, except the only thing Omega needed to do was beat Hangman up, which didn't happen. But everything else was already like, okay, this dude's a heel. He's a heel completely. Now, do I think that, for me, would I like to see Omega and Kenny, or excuse me, Omega and Moxley compete again? Not really, but that's the money match for the AEW crowd, and it's time for Moxley to drop the title, because he's already won, and he's won a lot of matches in situations where he shouldn't have. And I'm not saying that he should have lost. I'm just saying that there should have been some no contests in there. There should have been, some, I guess, for lack of a better term, booking loopholes. Little loose ends, booking loose ends, not loopholes, but loose ends, to protect the guys that he was working against. But it's also to make sure that there's stories to tell in the future. And I think to try to give too many clean wins, they've actually hurt a lot of guys that could have been that could have been put in the main event even as placeholders in between, the big matches, and they've really made some bad booking decisions. Brian Cage, I was gonna say Luke Harper, Brody Lee, all those guys, guys like that. They've been booked poorly against Moxley in matches where probably a no contest would have been a good way out. Even if people would have complained about it, I'm like, hey, I'd rather have a loose end where these guys can get a rematch, and then we can get a big money match where then you can get, a decisive win one way or the other. I hope that this match is really good. What I'm hoping out of this match is that I finally get to see the Kenny Omega that, I got to see some glimpses of in Japan, and that people have been, keep telling me, oh, it's there. I've seen some of it in AEW, but not a lot. And I really want to see a match where Omega can elevate himself while elevating his opponent at the same time, and do so in a way that, for me as an audience member, who wants to like it, but I'm not going to, I'm not going to want to like it so much that I'm willing to take whatever they give me and praise it if I don't like it. I want to be able to see that and say, all right, because I really think that Adam Page is a star, and I think that for Kenny Omega, he's a guy that can look the part, and he could probably be a big star in AEW. But a lot of the little crumb and pseudo stuff that they try to do because it seems like it works for their audience, they need to just rip off that facade, and he just needs to go full blown heel, like just straight up, and get rid of the sweeper gimmick. That's silly no matter whether you're a babyface or heel. Be aggressive, be a heel, but don't try to be silly at the same time for the sake of trying to poke fun at people who may not have liked the sweeper gimmick. Do something else. This isn't about sticking, flipping the bird to other people that said that gimmick sucks, because it does suck. Don't use it. Be a heel. Get your stuff over.
A lot of people like him in that gimmick.
Mm. Well, listen. I could like the matches, but I never liked that gimmick. I always thought it was stupid. And I'll continue.
Is just the guy who comes clean up after the job's been done. That's kind of all it is. It's not.
Yeah, and you know what? That's, with all due respect, that's not a main event gimmick on anybody. I don't care who. Get rid of it. Again, if you want to be looked at as a serious main eventer, all the you could, like I said, you can be funny. I'm not against comedy, but if you want to be silly, funny, like haha,
it's not a comedy gimmick. It's a serious mobster style. The cleaner is the guy who comes gets rid of the body. That's what the cleaner means in real life.
Do you realize that most people don't even view it that way? When you see a freaking broom, you know what they think? They probably think a janitor gimmick.
There's no way.
Sorry.
If this was WWE, yes, because a lot of children watch, but most adults understand what the gimmick is.
Man, I'm a grown ass man, and I'm telling you, it's a damn janitor.
You don't want to like it, so it's different.
Stop it. Stop it.
There's a lot of New Japan fans that love that gimmick.
Okay, that's great. That might have gotten understood to the Japanese audience, but not United States of America. I'm looking at it as he's a janitor.
Oh God. Okay. Anyway, FTR against the Young Bucks. Another match that for me is going to be good. I don't see how it can't be good, but we'll see.
I don't know. That match.
I haven't seen
that match could go either way. I'm hoping that it's great, but
I mean, to you, it could be the best match ever. And if one thing that you don't like, you'll say it's a bad match.
No. I'm not gonna listen. I'm not going to be that harsh. But I will say that
FTR is yet to have a bad match, and for me, the Young Bucks have not had a bad match.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think that FTR have had. How can I say this? They've had matches to where I've been a little disappointed. Not that they were bad, but it's a matter of upholding a certain standard for me. And it seems like what they're doing is that they're trying to play a little too much to the strengths of the other guys, and it almost seems like you can work to the strengths of the other team, but if you know that you can construct the match better than that, then you gotta keep the match with all due respect. I know I'm going to use the tag team gimmick. You got to keep the match on your side of the ring for the most part. Meaning, work the match to where shine them and have them do all the best things that they know how to do, but at the same time, don't let it get too far off.
Look, I'm sorry.
I'm not. Listen,
you
dude.
Lost me here. FTR, when they were in WWE, if you remove NXT, they worked the style that you're asking them to work, and those matches were boring, trash, horrible matches in WWE for the most part. And we knew they were better than that because we saw what they can do in NXT. And on the main roster, they were garbage, boring ass matches. They've had 10 matches already that are better than everything they've done on the main roster, which is shocking because they probably had 80 matches on the main roster, and we didn't care about not one.
Well, you didn't care. You didn't listen. You didn't care about not one. It had nothing to do with the talent. Maybe the matches were not great, but it's the way that they're positioned and the way that they've been presented in the WWE.
No.
AEW, they've always been presented as a big deal.
No, forget that. Forget that. I'm talking
It's
about if
presented
you're
as
just
a big
watching the
deal.
match. If you're just watching the match, regardless of positioning, these matches are interesting. They're unique. They like every FTR match has been completely different from the one before it.
Correct. I'm not
And the
denying that.
matches are creative, very creative. They find very creative ways to double team,
Yes,
very
but
creative ways to cheat.
creative isn't always good.
It is when it's FTR. They've done
Creative isn't
great work.
always good.
I cannot
That's the
believe all I'm hearing
difference.
coming out of your mouth.
You can listen.
These
I'll give
matches
you
have
all of that.
been
The
pretty
matches
much.
are unique. They're different. They're creative. I'll give you all of that because it's all true. It
You'd
doesn't
rather have
always.
a boring.
It doesn't always mean. It doesn't always mean that the end result is good.
FTR has had great matches pretty consistently. I can't even think of what time in AEW that I saw FTR match and was like, everything was like so interesting that I wanted to watch it again to make sure I caught everything, every detail.
Okay, well,
that's me. That's me.
All I know is that I'm not a fan of the Young Bucks style. So to me,
I'm not talking about the Young Bucks. I'm talking about FTR.
No. But what I'm saying is, in this specific match, this is a match that everybody wants to see, myself included. I want to see this match because I really think that the Young Bucks and their best instincts can produce a good tag team match, especially with guys like FTR. I have a lot of high expectations for this match. If this match, both teams work together in their biggest strengths without going each one too far off the rails, meaning the Young Bucks just wanting to do endless high spot selling, nothing, blah blah blah. If they do too much of that, they're going to...
Lou, I don't know where you get this selling nothing. Matt Jackson has been selling his leg for like 3 weeks. It feels like, I mean, I don't know how long it's been on everything. He's been selling it on everything. On interviews. He's limping to interviews.
Good. But what I'm talking about is when they get in the ring. You understand what I'm talking about, man. I'm not talking about...
What are you saying? That he's going to do a move that he shouldn't be able to do? That's just wrestling. They're superheroes. That's every match. That's every wrestler.
No,
that's every wrestler.
All I know. Yeah, well, listen. I could watch all types of wrestling matches and be able to pick them apart for things that don't make sense. What I'm hoping for in this match is that both teams work to their very best instincts, and we can have a classic tag team match.
Well, I think this is what I think. This is only the first match. I don't think this is going to be their best match. I think they're saving it. I don't know for when, but I think they're going to try to have as good a match as they can, but they're not going to give you everything they've got.
I think
they're going to hold back.
It's weird. I think that it actually needs to work the other way around. Give me your best match in the beginning.
Really?
Because I'll tell you why. Give me your very best match in the beginning, because what's going to end up happening is that for some people, you want the best match to be the first one, because then all the other ones that you see subsequent after that, the interest level, it's diminishing returns. It's less and less and less every single time. Not because the matches are worse, not because it's just that the stakes are lower because you've already seen it. So the fact that this is their first match against each other and it is televised, it is on pay-per-view, make it the very best match. And then all the other ones subsequent after that, it's not a matter of saying, hey, let's top the last one. If that's their perspective, I'm like, save that for the blow-off and make all the other matches, keep them on par. But when you go to the blow-off, then it's just like, all right, balls to the wall, do whatever you want to do. But the very first match has to be the best one of the bunch, because that's how you're going to get people to want to maintain interest, because there's the law of diminishing returns. It's less and less every time they wrestle against each other moving forward.
I think they're going to try to have a really I think no matter what, if they're in the ring together, they're going to try to have the best match on the card, no matter what. That's what they're going to try to do. I do think they're going to save some stuff for the blow-off. And I do think that this first match will be story-driven, will be selling-driven. Matt is going to sell his leg the whole match.
I hope so.
Yes, he's going to hit a move off his leg. He's going to hit a super kick, whatever. Yes, it's going to happen. Just like
That's okay.
If Hogan is selling his leg, I'm sorry, brother. He still got to hit that big boot. He still got to hit that leg drop.
That's true. That's the reason why you never saw Hogan. That's why you never saw Hogan's legs get worked on any of his matches back in the 80s. They always worked on his arms.
They worked on his legs, so I don't see Matt being super efficient. They're gonna beat Matt down. Nick Jackson's gonna get the hot tag. You know, maybe you don't like his hot tag, but a lot of people do like his hot tag. Is a very exciting, super indie hot tag.
well,
but it's a very exciting, very athletic hot tag that he does. You know, I think that's gonna be the match.
Who goes over?
That's the tricky one because you probably don't know this, or maybe you do know this, but did you hear what Matt and Nick said?
Why would they do that? That is so stupid.
I don't have a problem with it, except
I do because Cody just did it a year earlier.
Yes, that's my problem is you can't get out of it twice. So Cody can get out of it. That was my thought. Okay, Cody will get out of this because either the fans will want it so badly, or he could turn heel and use his power. There's ways to do it, but you can't do it twice. That's the thing. So now it's like, uh-oh.
And here's the problem.
So now the Bucks got to win.
And here's the issue. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that when AEW thought about this, that was the whole premise, is to be like, all right, we want to make this more of a pick'em than it already looks on paper. In all honesty, FTR should go over. And they have to cheat. They're not going to beat the Bucks clean. They got to cheat. But what ends up happening is that when you put that kind of a stipulation, and you're telling me that to the AEW audience, they're the most popular team, the team that the AEW fans are the most behind and think are the best tag team in the world, and they're getting their first legit shot at the AEW tag titles against, you know, what most people believe, myself included, are the best tag team in professional wrestling. And they're saying if we lose this match, we'll never challenge for the tag titles again. That's a real heavy stipulation, because at the end of the day, it's a booking nightmare. Because if the Bucks lose, let's just say that FTR beats the Bucks, that means that your most popular team and probably the best opponent for FTR from a box office standpoint is now from a storyline perspective eliminated. And then when you take a look at all the other teams, even though they all have their individual skills and talents and can all have good matches at FTR, it's not box office. So this is where I'm saying that stipulation is just, and the fact that Cody just went through it a year earlier, that I'm not saying that wound is fresh, but that stipulation, there's no need to do it. I just think that it's something that's going to be a hindrance, because if the Bucks win the titles, then it's like, okay, well, the Bucks win on the very first attempt against FTR, and FTR should win to maintain heat and continue telling stories later, you know, with the Bucks. And if the Bucks win the titles, you could take off some of the steam off FTR. If FTR wins, you've taken away the best box office opponent that they have. So
it's definitely tricky. I think FTR is talented enough. They can always get their heat back. They'll be fine. They can lose and they can win the titles back at the next pay-per-view and find a way to take out the Bucks, injure them and get them out of there for a little bit. There's ways to do it. I do think that the Bucks, based on the stipulation, they can't lose. You can't take them out, based on the stipulation. Obviously, if the stipulation didn't exist, I would want FTR to win. I think it's better for Bucks to get cheated at first, and then get them later.
It would work much better if the Bucks were baby faces. Like,
yes, and
it would work much better. And they're not. They're heels.
Well, no, I don't think they're heels yet. I think they are angry young men who are confused and things are not necessarily going their way. And I think, maybe this match we'll see, their babyface, the babyface Bucks. And that's I think that's what FTR's goal will be in this match, to get sympathy for them, to show whatever they want to do, FTR, as a great heel team, whatever they want to accomplish, they're gonna accomplish in this match. And if it's to make the Young Bucks, the biggest babyface tag team in the world, I think they can do it. I think they're that good. Let's see how. Let's see what. I'm excited though. I'm very hyped.
I got high expectations for this match. I hope that I'm not disappointed, and really I hope that I'm not putting such a high expectation on this match, because I really want to like it and I want to enjoy it, because I think that these two teams can put on a good match if they work to their best instincts.
All right, then we got Kobe versus Darby, which they've already had a couple of matches. They're usually always, to me, they're always good, the matches. The question is it time for Darby to finally get his win over Cody?
Well, I guess here's the thing. What's the purpose for this match? Outside of having the match, what's the purpose of it? What's the story? What's the deal? It's just, I don't know.
Darby has kind of always been in Cody's, rear mirror. Like, I'm gonna get you one day.
That's okay. That's fine. But the thing is, to get to this match, I'm talking to get to this particular match. It seems like it's very random. And I guess my deal is here with Cody is that if he's the TNT champion, I understand that the championship in itself almost seems like it's almost rendered as like a pseudo television title. Mm-hmm. It almost seems like the matches are designed to be random. It's not like they're not designed to tell long stories getting us to a championship match. However, when you're going to a pay-per-view, it seems like Cody went from coming back from injury, beating Brody Lee, then having, gotten taken to the limit by Orange Cassidy, and now Darby Allin. It almost seems like, okay, where's the bridge to Darby Allin? And it just seems like this match, will it be a good match? I'm sure it will. But it's just like, I've already seen it. It's not new. There's no story. There's no real story for this match. So therefore, by that proxy, I'm not interested in seeing it.
Yeah, I agree. They didn't necessarily. Cody's story is always good, and his trajectory is good, but they didn't do a good enough job with. Darby has his wins and he has his big moments, but in the last month, he did beat Ricky Starks, but he really didn't do anything else that felt big enough to get this shot at a pay-per-view.
See, my deal is that if Darby Allin should be working against anybody in this pay-per-view, it should be Ricky Starks or Brian Cage, because the story that he's been having has been with Taz, Cage, and Starks for the last several months. That's the whole thing. And I'm sure that if they want to use this match as a means to get Starks and Cage involved, and they want to do some schmaz,
I think that's exactly what this match is.
Do I like that concept? The answer is no, only because of the fact that for a lot of Cody's matches, there always seems to be a lot of garnish around his matches. Most of the time, not necessary.
To be fair, that's kind of remember what I say, that AEW is kind of like the buffet style wrestling, and that's almost Cody's style. That type of match is what he brings to the table.
That's great.
He doesn't do it, no one else will, almost.
Well, here's the thing. As much as I can respect the fact that that's Cody's style and that's the kind of match he wants to have, when you have it too often, it loses its effect, because now you're expecting it every single time. It's good to have that in your bag during big matches, during big moments, but when it almost seems like it's every match. There's some variation of that.
Well,
it may not be the exact same deal, but there's always some variation of garnish, of smoke and mirrors, whatever phrase you want to use. And there's too much of that in his matches.
Probably, but there's also story in his matches. There's always.
Oh, I'm not denying that.
There's always a point. So I think you gotta take the good with the bad. I don't think there's too much of it, because only he does it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's his style. It's that southern style, you know,
Yeah, it's just. I mean, listen, I'm more.
it's almost like that Dusty style, you know. So
Well, listen, that's all fair and good. I just think that when the whole idea of the buffet style, yeah, it's good. It's good in some sense, but again, it's the same thing. If I go to Popeyes, or if I go like a big buffet restaurant, no matter what I'm eating, I'm expecting it to be good. And if I go to a buffet and it's got like 50 different things and only 3 or 4 of them are good, then I'm going to say this is a bad restaurant. So it's a matter, like, when you do the buffet style, you want to make sure that everything is good. It doesn't have to be the greatest thing in the world, but everything has to complement each other. That's really what I'm trying to get at.
For my taste, most of it is good. I know for your taste, maybe 30% is good, but you know what? It's
Sometimes.
I think you will like this main event. Based on what we already seen from them, Eddie Kingston, Jon Moxley, based on their promo work,
yes,
that's been fantastic.
Yep.
And based on their ability to beat the shit out of each other and take an ass beating.
Yep.
And we know what to expect. They're gonna kick each other's asses.
Yep.
That's what you're getting. This is what it is. If you don't like this, then you don't like it. But this is what you're gonna get.
Well, I mean, with all due respect, and I say this with all due respect to Jon Moxley, because this match is basically all of his matches. It's just that this opponent with Eddie Kingston is clearly, that style is going to be right in your face, because it's clear, because it's not as if Eddie Kingston is an Olympic wrestler and then he gets brought into a brawl. That's who he is. He's a brawler. He's an extreme wrestler, right? Do I think this match will be good for the fight? Yes. Now, if I'm putting this show on, if I'm booking the show, I would probably want the other matches to be as few matches, to go out to the floor and do all that crazy shit that they would normally do, have as few people do it, because if that main event is going to essentially be, even though it's an I Quit match, but it's going to be an I Quit match that's going to happen all over the building, and it's going to happen in every crevice of Daly's place. I want that to be a very unique presentation, to where I don't want anybody else remotely doing it, to where it kind of seems like, all right, I've already seen this earlier in the night, even if it's not to the level that we're seeing it in the main event. Subtlety, because these two guys, that's their style. That's the style they like, and that's what we're going to get. I like Eddie Kingston a lot. I think his promos are fantastic, and I think his work has been very good in AEW. Very, very good. Does it make sense to put him in there against Moxley? The answer is yes, because in all honesty, you don't have anybody else. You don't have anybody else to put in there against Moxley that Moxley can beat. So, because in all honesty, like I said, it's time for Mox to lose the title. So this is a good opponent to have, where this could be the last title win that Moxley can get before the next transition comes, because he's going to lose the title probably, if not by year's end, by the first of next year. He's not going to be the AEW champion. So, this will be a fun match for what it is. Really, the hope is that when this event gets booked, is that the other matches don't work out on the floor nearly as much to make this unique.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Not only this is not an
AEW. You're right about that.
But this is not an AEW thing. Every match I've seen, probably in the last year, has gone out to the floor. If it's not a what's his name Thatcher match or Matt Riddle match, like there's few people who don't at least go to the floor for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It's just,
well, yeah. I mean, that's one thing, but what I'm talking about is in the matches where it's like 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, like that, where it's not like you're hitting a spot, you sell, you go back in the ring, and you continue the match. I'm talking like you're doing a prolonged set of spots. You're doing all this stuff on the floor. Like, no. If these two guys they want to do the ECW, CZW style extreme fight, it has to be theirs and theirs alone on that night.
You know what? I don't think they'll. I think people will go out to the floor, unfortunately, for extended periods of time. But I don't think that's gonna hinder this match, because I think what's gonna make this match different is how physical it is. It's gonna be the most physical, the most brutal. They're gonna hit each other harder than anybody else on the card. You know, this match is probably gonna. Well, I was gonna say this match might be the only one with blood, but Cody's almost guaranteed to get color in every match.
There's no
I don't
need.
think Cody's gonna get
Cody versus Darby. There's zero need for it unless it's an accidental hard way. No need for it to be part of the match. No.
All right. Well,
No.
anyway, we'll see what happens. Let's go
No.
over Halloween Havoc really quickly.
Whoa! Wait a minute. Time out. I need a 20 here.
What?
So you're gonna go through this whole Full Gear pay-per-view,
Did I
and
miss
you're
somebody?
missing Chris Jericho versus MJF.
Oh shit! Oh, they don't have that listed.
Vic, come on.
They didn't have it listed. Sorry, I forgot. Okay, Chris Jericho versus MJF. I completely forgot.
Oh man.
And if MJF wins, he's in the Inner Circle. And if he loses, was there anything? Is he gonna do anything? No, right? So I guess he's.
I will say that although I know that MJF is gonna win this match, I've never been a bigger Chris Jericho fan than I am right now. I say this with all due respect. I
So what?
I don't want MJF in the Inner Circle. I want MJF with Wardlow to create a stable on his own. I don't want him in the Inner Circle. It just maybe AEW has a great story that they want to tell here, but I am not looking forward to seeing MJF in the Inner Circle. I'm just not. I really hope, in all honesty, I know that he's going to win more than likely, but I really want MJF to lose.
I think you can figure out interesting things to do regardless of outcome, because if he doesn't get in, then that automatically creates a feud between him and Jericho, because now it's like, fuck you then. You know, and that beef can still happen even if MJF loses. So
but it's you turn him up to another level because it's his first loss in AEW. He's out of the Inner Circle, and now he needs to find a way that, you know, he wasn't able to join him, so now he's got to beat him. And then that's, to me, that's a more compelling story because MJF can be a more serious heel and can do all the same stuff that he does and that he does very well, but is not. He's doing it now with a super heelish intent that you can see in every action that he does. There's no subtlety to it. And that's kind of what I want to see out of him, because he's one of those few guys that he's got the ability to cut promos, get heat, and have people genuinely dislike him. And the thing is that with the Inner Circle, again, you know, I'm not a fan of what I've seen from the middle of the year coming into this. So it's almost like I want MJF to lose, and it's almost like for his own good, almost, you know, to me. I just think that there's more with MJF being on his own and creating his own stable. And like I said, it would be great to have Alexander Hammerstone and, gosh, I forget the other dude when they were in MLW, how good they were as a trio. If those two guys would come in with MJF and Wardlow, you got yourself a fantastic stable there. So again, I would prefer that MJF loses, although I think that he's going to win.
Well, my question if I'm booking, my question to myself is, am I done with Jericho as a heel? Has he worked with all the baby faces? Has he helped get them over? He did help get Orange Cassidy, in my opinion, over. He did get to work with Hangman. He got to work with Kenny. He got to work with Cody. Is there anyone left on the baby face side for him to work with that he can help elevate, or is it time to move him babyface and that way he can start elevating heels? That's my question, because that helps me decide if I want MJF in the Inner Circle so that MJF could turn on Jericho and Jericho turn babyface.
I think that with Chris Jericho, I don't think that he's done yet as a heel. What I mean by that is, yes, he did work with Adam Page. I think that needs to be revisited. that pairing needs to be revisited. What I mean by that is that Adam Page now, with the persona that he's playing now, he's more over, and I think that he's a lot more comfortable in whatever role he has, excuse me, as a performer in AEW than he did a year ago when this started. I think with Chris Jericho and the Inner Circle, there almost seems to be like there needs to be kind of like a like, I don't want to call it a reset button, but I think for them they have to kind of go back to the basic premise of what the stable is, you know, and the AEW booking, they know what that is way better than I do, but they got to go back to square one in terms of what is the original intent of the Inner Circle. Not meaning you have to go all the way back and start over again, but it's a matter of trying to find that essence, because I think that they've geared themselves a lot of it to the more, you know, comedy stuff. And, you know, it just, there seems to be like, for me, I think that Jericho has a lot of legs that can be a heel, but it's got to be done in such a way that if he wants to employ comedy, that's fine, but it's got to be done a lot less, and he's got to be able to be a much more serious heel, because I think that in this context, he's going to make a much better heel than he would a babyface. I think in AEW, he's got to revisit against Hangman Page. Do I think that he needs to revisit Cody? No, not right now. But I think that might be a good challenge for the TNT title. Jericho might make a good opponent for Cody, but that has to be a story that's told over a certain stretch of time. It can't be a random match to just thrown together. There and right now, you know, off the top, you know, a guy like Scorpio Sky in his development, there has to be develop Scorpio Sky to where you get to work a proper match with Chris Jericho. What I mean by proper match is not the X's and O's. I'm talking about when he wrestled against Chris Jericho, however, you know, at the beginning of AEW's run, and it was just a random match that was thrown together for the AEW title. And I was like, wait a minute. To the national audience, Scorpio Sky is a rookie, even though he's been wrestling for 15 years. But the national audience has no idea who he is. And you're throwing him in there against a very recognizable household name in Chris Jericho, and you're putting the AEW title on the line. I was like, unless you're putting the strap on this kid, this match is all for naught. And, you know, Jericho beat him, and he beat him clean. Match is all for naught. So I think that there's a lot of guys that AEW has that they can build around. And, you know, you and I will disagree forever on Orange Cassidy, but there are other guys on the AEW roster on the babyface side that can really use an opponent like Chris Jericho to help them in their development. Because is Chris Jericho ready to be a babyface yet? Absolutely not.
All right. Now Halloween Havoc.
Now Halloween Havoc.
We can go over these results quick. You had Gargano go over Priest in what felt like a 50-50 match again.
Well, but Gargano went over.
Which
know,
is
so and here's the thing. I didn't like that it was a 50-50 match. Again, these matches have to be you got to look at the psychology behind this. Damian Priest, 6'7", 200 whatever, 50, 60 pounds against Johnny Gargano, all 5'7" and 200 pounds.
Maybe. But yeah, we get it though. He's much smaller.
Well, $190, whatever. But you cannot have a 50-50 match between these two guys, especially with Gargano as the heel. If Gargano's the babyface, it's different because Gargano can out-wrestle Priest. And Priest can use his size and strength to keep him down, but Gargano wrestles him and the match stays even. With Priest being the babyface, it's weird because it's like Gargano's this small dude. He doesn't really cheat much throughout the match. He just takes advantage of small mistakes that Priest makes. And then you have, you got one of the Undertaker's druids that made a special guest appearance on NXT, and he helps Gargano win the title. The match was fun. Was it a great match? No, it wasn't. Because again, the psychology, if you're looking at a Damian Priest Johnny Gargano match, at the worst, it has to be 60-40 for Priest at worst. I would prefer it be 70-30 just based on, or 65-35 based on size and strength. But when it's too close to a 50-50 match, again, did they do the right by Damian Priest? Not really sure, because I know that Damian Priest, they're going to want to put the NXT championship on him. I know that that's the goal, and in order to do that, you got to take the North American title off of him. But you got to do it in a way that with Johnny Gargano, I know that you don't want to make him look bad by having him work a match where, you know, he's getting his clock clean for, you know, 2/3 of the match. But from a size perspective, that's kind of what works. And then when he gets the help from the Undertaker's Druid and whatever have you, and they beat Damian Priest, good, makes sense.
Did they explain this Druid?
No. They, you know, when the Druid came out again during the Candice LeRae match, I thought that they were gonna take the hood off and reveal who this person is, and it didn't happen. So that was another bad storytelling.
Well, they can explain it on Wednesday, right? So
well, no, not really, because if you're going to do that, and the way that they could have explained it is if Candice LeRae would have won the title too, with the Druid
tried to help Candice, right?
Yes, but the Druid successfully helping Candice win, then it makes sense, because now both the husband and wife could come to the ring with the titles, and then they can reveal the person who helped them.
What if they have one of those little dinners that they always have, and they're talking, and Johnny, because he's a piece of shit heel, is kind of rubbing it in like, well, I did my part, and then
what happened to you?
And then Candice can kind of be like, well, if it wasn't for your stupid friend who couldn't help me, and then they can still reveal. They have to reveal this person. You can't just have random people.
No, you're right.
Matches.
No, you're right. It has to be revealed. It has to be revealed.
I don't know how they're gonna do it. They got smart people working over there. They got to figure it out. But like you said, that is interesting. I thought both were gonna win. Johnny gets to win. Candice does not. Ooh, that's tricky, huh? That there might be some friction. Yeah.
No friction, bro.
You got Santos Escobar going over Jake Atlas.
Who cares?
Who cares? And then who cares match?
Listen, I say this with all due respect. I like Santos Escobar, and I want to like Legado del Fantasma. The problem is that they've been booked so poorly that I don't care. Jake Atlas is a guy that could be a very likable white meat babyface, and there's so many things about him in his real life that WWE don't talk about. They don't talk about the fact that he's openly gay. They don't talk about the fact that, you know where he comes from, coming from East LA and all the things that he had to go through. There's so many things, so many wonderful stories that can make Jake Atlas a very likable baby face, because he's a white meat baby face. He's very talented in the ring. It's just they book him like shit. So that's why the match didn't matter to me.
You had Rhea Ripley going over Raquel, but Raquel looking like a star, having a good performance, hanging in there. She looked good. She looked
great. She was great.
6 months ago, she looked green as shit. So something works. So she's figuring things out. I like when you see a person grow and get better. She's obviously gotten better.
I will say this. This is a match that makes all the sense in the world, right? Because the one thing that I've always said about Rhea Ripley is that she's a babyface, but she looks like a monster, and she looks like a heel wrestling against much smaller opponents. Well, in this case, she wrestled the one woman on the roster who's physically bigger and physically stronger than her. So it's like, okay, great. When they showed the tail of the tape, when they show their height, their weight, their backgrounds, their records, all that was good, because you're visually telling the audience, okay, Raquel is bigger. Raquel is 6 feet tall and whatever they quote her at, 200 pounds or whatever. And you have Rhea Ripley at 5'10" and $180 or whatever they quoted her at. You see that, you see the difference. And then what's the very first thing you see in the match when they go face to face, and it's perfect psychology, because it's to tell the audience Rhea Ripley's smaller. That's all it was meant to do. Rhea Ripley's finally meeting somebody who is bigger and stronger than her. And the first sequence that they do is they go into the bang bang sequence, and then yeah, in the beginning, it seems like Rhea's trying to get the advantage, but Raquel's size and strength keeps cutting her off to the point where even Rhea Ripley's like, "What the hell did I just run into?" Like she got this look on her face. She's not scared, but she's in shock because she can't punk this person around. She can't punk her around. The match worked. I think that Raquel Gonzalez, like I said, I knew that Raquel would lose, and Raquel lost. I'm not happy with the fact that Raquel got beat clean. That she lost to Rhea Ripley's finish. I would have preferred that Rhea Ripley would have beat her with something else. Because of the fact that I want to see this match again. And when you have Rhea Ripley beat her, she beat her flat with her finish. No matter how good Raquel looked in the match, it almost seems like there's an exclamation point and we're not going to see a rematch. I would have preferred Rhea Ripley to beat her another way. Maybe not beat her with a roll up, but maybe like a quick power move or something like that would get Raquel down, but not with the riptide. I didn't like that. That needs to be for another match. But Raquel Gonzalez, this match did for her exactly what I hoped for. Is that Raquel looked great. Listen, like I said, Rhea Ripley does not belong in NXT anymore. She belongs in the WWE main roster. She should be competing for the Raw, the SmackDown Women's Championship like ASAP. But what she's doing with NXT is she's helping the other women, and the only person that Raquel Gonzalez could have worked with that was going to make her look this good was Rhea Ripley. And the thing is, at some point, I think that there's going to be 2 more matches in this series. Match number 2, Raquel Gonzalez is going to win with help from Dakota Kai, but she's going to win. And then in the blow-off, that's going to be Rhea Ripley's swan song from NXT. She beats Raquel Gonzalez and keeps it moving.
All right, you had Io Shirai defeat Candice, and like we said, these girls can, they're these girls work like the boys.
They're great.
They can do everything the guys can do, which is what I said about Candice. Candice is really, really good. I don't like the character stuff for her right now, but the in-ring stuff, she's been good for a while now. So
she always has been.
Yeah. So
and working with Io Shirai, Io Shirai is a great dance partner for Candice, and likewise, they're great dance partners for each other because they're the same size. Let's start with that. They're the same size. They're both about 5'1", 5'2", each one. Neither one of them probably goes more than 120 pounds. They're tiny, but they're athletic and they're tough women. Did I like the fact that it was a TLC match? No. With all due respect, as much as I think of these women and I think very highly of them, it almost seems like with the WWE, I don't. With the Hell in the Cell, when they did the 3 cage matches and one of them being Sasha and Bayley, and they did what they did, and then you go to NXT and you have this match with the TLC match, and the tables and the chairs and all this other stuff. I get that WWE is trying to break the wall of that the men and women are completely equal, and I'm totally cool with that. I just think that there gets to a point where when it almost seems unfeasible that 2 women who are 5'1", 110, 115 pounds can take the ass whipping that they took for 20 plus minutes and not be broken in half at the end, no matter how tough you are.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. Like there's
I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think if I'm watching the match, it didn't bother me one bit that they were in the match. What bothers me is with matches like this is, the more you do them, they don't necessarily feel special.
And too much.
These girls don't have any.
They just did it 3 days earlier. Tell them to sell.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They don't really have enough beef to have such a, crazy match. There's, you probably don't need this match. You just didn't need it. You did it as a gimmick, and the whole show was done as a gimmick. It
was a fun show. It was
It was designed to be fun, and it was fun. And at the end of the day, that was the plan. So they executed. Last but not least, you had Dexter Lumis versus Cameron Grimes in the Haunted House of Terror match. What I always say with things that are very unique, I'm okay with it if it works. If I laugh, if I enjoy it, then I'm not gonna judge you. But it did not make me laugh. I did not enjoy it. And the jokes didn't work. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't scary. If the point of it was to be scary, it wasn't. So I don't think it served the purpose. I don't think Dexter Lumis is gonna get over ever as this character. I just don't see it happening. Of course, anything can happen, but it's time to change him a little bit subtly, make some changes, and move on from this character. It's just not necessary.
This match was the shits. This match was horrible. So let's think about it like this. So you mean to tell me that in a company that has the Fiend, right? Let's say the Fiend is your Freddy Krueger character, and his gimmick don't go as far as Dexter Lumis's gimmick went during this match. Undertaker, 30 years of a guy that's supposed to be a dead man from the dark side, and you ain't never see it get this dark.
Well, wow. Well, no. Undertaker has done some fucked up shit.
No, but what I'm saying is that the
what specifically bothered you?
Okay, so the fact no what I wouldn't no this is just a cacophony of just garbage from the beginning. So William Regal, the funniest part was when Cameron Grimes is talking to Regal, and he's basically saying like, "Oh, Mr. Regal, you know, I'd rather have this match be in the ring, blah blah blah." And Mr. Regal's like, "No, come with me, come with me." Like just him be like, it's almost like speaking to a small child. Like I would tell like my son.
Regal's really fun. Regal's actually
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So then he goes to this truck that looks like you know the crypt keeper from Tales of the Crypt is the driver, a big white van. They open up and Michael P.S. Hayes comes out of it playing, you know, Bad Street USA in the background. He cuts a promo, and then Dexter and then Cameron Grimes is like, you know, against his better judgment, he gets in the damn truck and he goes to wherever this place goes. So they drop him off in the middle of the woods. They don't even open the door. He opens the door himself. So obviously it's just like, okay, you'd figure that he'd be scared, you know, he'd be scared pissless, but no, nothing. He goes down this house all the way in. And then all you see is like these ghosts and ghouls and all this crap that doesn't fit Dexter Lumis's presentation. It doesn't fit him. It's one thing if it was almost like, you know, like a really quiet, creepy thing, and he can kind of like weave himself in and out, beat him up. But when you're talking about people dressed up as like these ghouls and ghosts, and it looks like a mix between Thriller and, oh my God, you know, so all these different horror movies,
Dawn of the Dead,
all this other garbage, and then after getting beat up by Dexter Lumis, getting beat up by the ghosts, you know, and God knows what else, he runs out of the house, runs all the way back to the Performance Center. And then all of a sudden, Dexter Lumis is there, all the ghouls are there, the whole Thriller gimmick is there, and listen, I get that it's Halloween Havoc, I get that that's the theme, and you're trying to do all of this. This doesn't fit Dexter Lumis's presentation. This did zero. Dexter Lumis is not going to get over in this persona the way that this is being presented. Cameron Grimes is going to be able to get over because Cameron Grimes can talk and he's got a lot of personality and he can do all that stuff. But you got to separate these two guys like yesterday. Separate them. With Dexter Lumis, unless you're going to turn him into the 2020 version of The Undertaker, or find some really like dark, go really crazy with him to make it work. Because when I look at Dexter Lumis, what I think of is the show Dexter. the guy that's like that seems very straight laced, but he's like a he's a murderer.
That's definitely that's what they're going for.
But the thing is, would you ever see Dexter, the character Dexter? Would you see that presentation on him?
No, he's just like a serial killer. He's a good guy who kills bad guys.
I'm just saying that. Yeah. So yeah, that. But what I'm saying is that there's something with Dexter Lumis's presentation that is off. This was hot garbage.
They used Dexter Lumis as an excuse to do every scary trope from every bad horror movie.
Hot garbage.
Anyway, okay, enough of this. All right, we're nearing the end here. So I just want to give some shout outs, some things that I felt were notable, quick shout outs. First is EC3. I was waiting he's been cutting a lot of promos, and a lot of them, especially in the beginning, were about other people. It's almost like he's trying to put others over and using his platform or his character to put others over. And when he first gets to Impact, he's chasing Moose around, and it's kind of taking too long for anything to happen. But the story is basically Moose is a fake champion because he's walking around with the TNA title.
The TNA title.
And I was worried. I'm a TNA fan. I was a TNA fan for most of their run. I'm more of a TNA fan than I am an Impact fan. Whatever. Once they switched brands. And my problem with Impact was right away they wanted to bury everything that was TNA, which I think is a mistake. But that's a whole nother thing. The point is, EC3 comes in and it's almost like he's burying the title too. And I was worried. I'm like, damn. I'm like, I don't like that. I'm like, that's not cool. That title helped EC3. You didn't get to see this payoff, Lou, but they had this match at Bound for Glory, and it's more cinematic, very similar to the gimmick that they were doing Underground, the Raw Underground.
Okay.
Which is obviously EC3 has been showing this in his videos for a while before Underground even happened.
Yeah, all the training, all the intense training, and all that stuff.
He kind of did it in the dark ring. He has the whole setup, which is pretty cool. So Moose shows up. He has his title, and pretty much this match or fight, it's a fight, is designed to bring that something that we all know. We talk about it all the time. I know I've been talking about it for years. Moose is missing something. He's missing something, and I don't know what it is. No one seems to know what it is. But up to when he was holding that TNA championship, things were coming together. The presentation was coming together. He looked awesome with the title and the robe and the gear, everything in all white. It just looked
weird. It's weird. Like, I'm not a fan of the robe. I think everything else was cool, but I didn't like the robe on Moose. I don't know why. I just don't like it on him.
Well, I know with the when he changed that title to white and he had the gear to match, I thought, whoa, this is top guy. He has some promo work to improve on. That's my a problem. If you're gonna be a top guy, you can.
I think that might also have to do with this. He has a lisp and all that stuff.
But Cody has a lisp, and it did hinder him. You got to figure it out or get a mouthpiece or something. I have a lisp, so I'm stuck with it too. So I if anything, I feel for him, but you gotta figure it out. But EC3 made Moose look like an ass kicker in this fight, and he's talking during the match, and he's like, finally, he puts over the title. The reason I don't want you, I took this title from you or whatever, or why I was bothering you is basically you don't deserve it. You never earned it. You haven't done anything. Show me that you deserve it. Prove to me that you're tough enough, that you're not this complainer and this crybaby. Show me that you're the 300-pound ass kicker that everyone thinks you really are. So that was the whole story. And by the end of it, that's exactly what you feel. You're like, oh shit. Because by the end of it, Moose is going to, put hands on him and almost kill him, basically. So EC3 does the favors for Moose in more ways than one and kind of helps elevate him to what I think is now a legit top guy for the first time in his career. I think he has enough to be a legit top guy. Definitely an Impact for sure.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, in Impact Wrestling, with all due respect, because when I look up and down the Impact roster, they do have good talents. I mean, I'm not going to say that they don't. They do have good talents. At the top of the card, though.
Well, like I said, they lost a lot of people. They lost a lot of people, and they were dealt a bad hand for a while. And it's been obviously it's been a difficult couple of years. They got some momentum now, and now they have some players, and they can build on that. Eric Young carried them for a little bit. Right now, he lost the title to Rich Swann, which I'm not a big Rich Swann fan. He does have a fascinating story, and he does have really fun, really good matches. I still don't think I think Moose is a better candidate for that moment. But let's see. They got some pieces. They still I do think they need 2 or 3 more people. They lost so many people. They still need 2 or 3 more to make things interesting. But
I don't know about that. I think that they have enough players on their roster now to make it work. I think what they have to do is they have to reshuffle the deck a little bit. I think that with in their tag team division, they have a lot of good tag teams, and I think I might actually. You got to probably break up one of these 2 teams. You either got to break up the North, because I think that. And listen, Ethan Page, and my God, I'm so upset that I can't remember his partner's name. I'm so sorry. I always forget his name. But the North are a fantastic tag team. But Ethan Page should be a single, or you can break up the team of I want to say of Ace Austin and the big guy, because I know they have them as a tag team, and I think that Ace Austin, he would make a very good single and can work for the Impact World title, but they have to present him as such. I think
he's one of the phenoms, young guys.
Like he's really good. And the thing about it is that I'm not saying that you gotta break up those tag teams and leave the tag team division barren, but at the same time, I think that Impact does have the players already in their rosters. Just you have to reshuffle the deck in certain areas. And at the top of the card, with all due respect to Rich Swann, because I know that Rich Swann has a story, I have not been a big fan of Rich Swann. I know that he has a very interesting. He has a very heartwarming story that anybody with a heart is going to be like, there's no way you can't cheer for this guy. That's one thing, but for him to be the world champion of any promotion that's on TV, I'm sorry, he's not the guy. He's just not that guy. I'm sorry, he's not. Now, would he be a good transitional champion if you're going to put Moose in that spot? I didn't see the match with EC3, so I can't judge one way. But if I saw that match and it says the way you described it, then Moose is the next guy, because there's no way that Rich Swann can have a sustained championship reign to try to make him. Because in all honesty, with Impact, the title, with all due respect, the title means nothing, and you gotta put the title on somebody who's going to elevate the championship, and that person has to be. They don't have to be a quote unquote top guy ready, but they got to be the closest thing to it. And the thing is, when I look at Rich Swann, I'm like, no, my dude, you're not that guy. Moose, I could buy under the right circumstances, but Rich Swann, probably under no circumstances would I buy him as the world champion of any promotion.
Josh Alexander, by the way, that's his name.
Thank you, Josh Alexander. I'm so sorry. He is, believe me, those 2 guys are a fantastic tag team. Fantastic.
Another shout out, Walter versus Dragunov in that barn burner.
Go watch that match.
Yeah,
boys and girls, that is. Listen, that's a match that I could probably go back to 10 years from now and watch it and still enjoy it, just like I would the first time. Fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah, basically.
Do yourselves a favor, tune into NXT UK and watch that match. You won't regret it.
All right. We also had Jonathan Gresham wins the ROH Pure Championship over Tracy Williams, who upset Jay Lethal, who to me was the obvious finalist to go against Gresham. Their tag team partners. Jay Lethal was for me the favorite. And Gresham looked really good. It reminded me of a young Daniel Bryan in this tournament. So shout out to him.
Listen. I like Jonathan Gresham. I think he's a fantastic talent. I think the one thing for him that's going to be a hindrance for him moving forward, unfortunately, is going to be his size. It has nothing to do with his skill, because his skill, he's a fantastic talent, but he's short to where he's short for Ring of Honor. You know, anywhere else he might look even smaller, and he's a fantastic talent. I can't say enough good things about him.
Watching this tournament, he looked great in this tournament, and it made it his height didn't bother me in this setting. So he's in the right role. They found the right role for him. I think it worked. I think let him work in that environment, that pure environment. Give him a year if you want to. I think he'll do really, really, really well. So good for him.
Yeah, the whole idea there is going to be, now that he's a double champion in Ring of Honor, because he's still tag team champion with Jay Lethal, and at some point, they're going to wrestle. At some point, they're going to wrestle each other for that pure championship at some point, and that's going to be the beginning of their breakup.
Yeah. There was no hints of a breakup. When he won the title, Jay Lethal comes out and congratulated him, cheered for him. So far so good. Let's see how long this lasts.
Listen, I think that this is going to be one of those things where it's weird, because I think that Jay Lethal in Ring of Honor listen, I'm a big Jay Lethal fan, but I think in Ring of Honor, his I don't want to say preferred role, because that's speaking on his behalf, but the role that seems to fit him best, in my opinion, is the heel role. He was a fantastic heel, and I think that working with Gresham and trying to show that he's a better wrestler than him and he can't do it, that could be the impetus for Jay Lethal to turn heel again and do some great stuff. Because I think the Jay Lethal as a heel, fantastic in Ring of Honor.
Jay Lethal's fantastic. I'm just done with him in Ring of Honor. But if he wants to stay there for the rest of his career, good for him.
Well, listen, I agree with you. However, where would he go?
Well, I think he can go. I think
but let's listen. Within the WWE circle, he would probably fit in NXT and nowhere else at the moment, right?
Yeah, but you can.
He would be best used, right?
Well, of course, but that goes for a lot of people.
So yeah, but in Jay Lethal's case, no, I agree with you. But let's say in Jay Lethal's case, NXT would be his best.
Yeah, Jay Lethal is one of those guys who would do really well in NXT, and probably we would, even if he did great things and was having killer matches. He's in the Ciampa, Gargano, Roderick Strong category. He's like
all Ring of Honor guys, all Ring of Honor alumni.
Exactly. These guys who will do great in NXT, and you kind of don't want them. Me personally, I don't want none of them in the main roster.
No,
it's over for them once they get up there.
So, my deal is that I don't think I ever want to see Jay Lethal in Impact again. I think that he's elevated himself to a position where he might not be a good fit for Impact right now.
I mean, I think I kind of like, based on what I've been seeing with Impact in the last, people are coming back. A lot of the originals are coming back, and I think it feels good to see that, and it's bringing a lot of positive energy in their direction. But Jay Lethal, he's been around for a long time. I want to see him AEW or NXT. I don't want to see him main roster, but I do want to see him there just to see what he can do. New matchups.
I in all honesty, I think that at this stage of his career, if he's going to make the jump, it's time. If you're gonna go, because listen, I saw him. I mean, yeah, listen, the one show he did for AEW was one show. He did it with the Black Machismo gimmick and all that, and that was a one-off. But part of me thinks that if I were Jay Lethal and you were gonna make the move and leave Ring of Honor, I would have a hard time not wanting to go to the WWE to at least try. Have your because in NXT, Jay Lethal will fit like a glove. Outside of NXT, that's another story.
It'll be tricky, but
I don't know whether or not it's weird to me because Jay Lethal has a great skill set, but I don't know if in the current AEW environment he would fit in very well right now. Versus I think with NXT, perfect landing
more
destination if he
needed
wanted
in
to leave.
NXT. I think they need because he can come in as a top babyface or top heel if they need him.
No, I think a babyface character would work well for him in the beginning.
At the beginning, he's gonna come in as a babyface, so everybody's gonna be so hyped. But I want to see him in NXT. I think he fits. He fits in nicely, and he has some nice matchups, and they'll put him to use because
quick.
He's gonna come in as a top babyface right away.
Oh yeah, so, absolutely. There's no way. That's the reason why I'm saying that I don't want to see him in Impact. I agree with you that it's time. It might be time for him to say goodbye to Ring of Honor. I mean, I would say the same thing about the Briscoes. I'd say the same thing about, there's other talents in Ring of Honor.
I say that about anybody who's been somewhere for so long. Like, obviously, there's some guys like, let's say, Randy Orton. Randy Orton's been in WWE for 100 years, but
he can't. He's not going to go anywhere else. He's not going to go anywhere else.
He's not going to. He's stuck there forever.
I say this with all due respect. If Randy Orton would have worked for anybody else outside of the WWE, and this is with all due respect, it would look really bad on him.
I don't think so.
What I mean by that is that when he steps into somebody else's ring and works with their talent, it just at least initially, it'll be like a huge shock to the eyes because of the fact that you got the WWE thing on you for so long.
It will be a shock to the eyes.
He's a WWE lifer. I don't see him working for anybody else.
And it's fine. It doesn't make sense for him to leave.
No, it doesn't.
He's taken care of well,
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm not even talking about money. I'm talking about booking. He's one of
everything.
He's one of the few people that got it good. If you got it good and you're still doing good work, you
don't need to go.
But if your character is stale and you've been with a company for 10 years, come on, get out of there. Please get out of there, especially if you're good.
Well, I mean,
Briscoes is exactly the first people. Briscoes and Jay Lethal are the top of the list for me.
And the funny thing,
Eddie Edwards.
Well, again, with Eddie Edwards, it's funny because I would send Eddie Edwards back to Ring of Honor. I think he'd work well there.
I agree. I want him back in Ring of Honor.
I would probably move the Briscoes to AEW because their tag team division is. Listen, for as much as I think that AEW's tag team division sometimes gets a little overblown because I think they have a lot of talents, but may not necessarily have the best teams. The Briscoes are legit in every sense of the word, and they're instant top guys when they show up to the door. Jay Lethal, WWE, there's just no other place. If he's gonna go, it's time to make the jump, and you make the jump.
And we can do this literally. We can do a whole show moving people around if you had the power to move guys.
The power of the pencil, brother.
And put them in any company. It would be so much fun. And, but that's always my idea. If you're stale, get out. Get out for a year. Get out for 2 years. Go somewhere else. Then come back. And you might have a new, fresh eyes.
I think that's the reason why when you talk about the absence of the territories, that's why that's a problem. Because unfortunately, what ends up happening is that all of these guys, right, no matter where they move to, they're moving to television. Meaning, if you go off of WWE's TV and you go to AEW, that's still national television. If you move to Ring of Honor, that's still, huge regional syndication. If you go to Impact Wrestling, they're on cable. None of these guys can disappear unless they leave the country and they go, normally you say, if you work in Europe or Japan, you disappear. But now with the internet and everything, you can still watch these guys all the way through.
You're right.
So there isn't a way for wrestling fans to truly disengage from a particular wrestler unless the fan is not somebody that's going to be digging, like really, really digging, and these guys disappear for a year or two, as they say in the business, go learn a new hold, and then they come back and they're a completely different version of themselves, and then the company presents them differently, and they could come back to the same place, be presented completely differently, and be a megastar. Drew McIntyre is the perfect example, but there's there's just so much, especially if they're moving around on companies in the United States, you're going to be seeing them all the time. So there isn't really a moment where you can just kind of breathe and get away from these guys for a while.
No, it's true. But what I've noticed is, even if you can't. You're right. You can't hide. You know, everybody is. If you're a diehard fan, you'll find your favorite guys, and that's fine because for me, it's still exciting to see new matchups, new stories, and to see what quote unquote like a booker, what the new booker can do with you, right? Like what can creative in a new territory do with you? Are you gonna get new gear? Are you gonna, are is that hunger? Like, do you have some more hunger? Like, because you've been somewhere for all these years, going through the motions, maybe. But if you were ever over within that one company, you can get over again. We know that. So when you show up on this new show, it's instant excitement. It's like, oh, what's he gonna do over here? Let's see. And you never know. These guys can get over again, and it's just exciting. Even though they can't disappear, it's still exciting to see them go somewhere else.
I mean, I think a good example of this, even though it kind of ended up not being, when I saw, you know, Morrison, Alberto Del Rio, guys like that when they were on Lucha Underground. And again, the reason why I say it's not the best example is ultimately because of, you know, Lucha Underground no longer exists, and it kind of phased out. But what it ended up doing was is that it gave a great platform, but for guys like that who had international TV, for Del Rio being the man in Mexico and then having the WWE TV, and then with Morrison having the WWE TV and then doing Impact and basically doing his rounds with all the different promotions. When they got there, they looked like stars, more like stars than I've seen them in the WWE. That's for sure. And outside of AAA in Mexico, Del Rio never looked better than what he did from a status position than when he was working for Lucha Underground. Even though Lucha Underground is technically AAA United States, but um, it was that's one of those things where that concept can work, but it also really depends on the creative of whatever company you go to being willing to put that on you, and then deciphering the talent that's on there, because you can be a guy that was looked at as a middle of the road guy in the WWE, but when they put you on with a different talent roster with guys that are lesser known, you look like a megastar. And then from there, all the if you do everything right, which most of these guys will do, then they look like megastars. But what ends up happening is that then you get the concept of big fish in a small pond type of thing, and then when most of these guys come back to the WWE, because almost all of them do at some point or another, they kind of fall back in the same spot that they were in previously, and then it's just like, oh, the last couple of years they were looking like hot stuff, and now they come back here and they piss them away again.
Yeah. But it keeps things interesting either way. Last but not least, let's talk about Tracy Smothers.
Oh man, the original Wild Act Southern Boy.
Tracy passed away on October 28th to lymphoma. So yes, it feels like we do one of these
Every week.
every week. So 2020 continues to bring us bad news. Obviously this guy worked all over the place. you know, um,
Yup.
you know better than I do because I mean, I can't even tell you when I started watching wrestling, but I probably as a baby, but as the stuff that I remember is from the 90s. Um Probably 94, 93. Everything else I had to go back and find. So I basically only know his ECW stuff. But
Oh,
I know he
much
had a
later.
run in Smoky Mountain and USWA and all these places. Even WWF short run there.
Yep.
But you know better than me. I know his stuff in ECW was mostly comedy. So where's his best stuff at, Lou? Where do I find his best stuff?
In all honesty, out his best singles run was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling as their top baby face in Smoky Mountain. Um, I saw some of that, but not all of it. The thing that I most remember Tracy Smothers for is his run in WCW. We're talking like 1990, 91. He was a member of the Wild Eyed Southern Boys with Steve Armstrong, which then later got changed to the Young Pistols, again with Steve Armstrong as his partner. Apparently, when they were in WCW, they didn't want to be considered a Southern-based wrestling organization, which WCW was a Southern-based wrestling organization. So they moved the Young Pistols from the South over to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I was like,
That's silly.
no disrespect to the people in Cheyenne, Wyoming, but Tracy Smothers said it in an interview, is like, hey, no disrespect, but I've never been to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I don't know what people do in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But Tracy was a fantastic talent. He's a guy that when I saw him with Steve Armstrong, as I got to see mostly them as the Young Pistols. I got to see some of them as the Southern Boys. They were a fantastic team. What I mean by that is that both guys were very young, and for the time, you got to look at the time frame. You're talking 1990, 1991. You're talking about two guys that they work two completely different styles. You had Tracy Smothers that can do a lot of the wrestling. He did the martial arts stuff, and Steve Armstrong would do all the high flying stuff, which was really not the norm in pro wrestling at the time. And knowing that Steve Armstrong was a big dude, Steve Armstrong's about 6'4", probably goes about 240. In today's wrestling, that's considered a giant. Back in those days, that's considered your average size wrestler, almost small, to be honest with you. And they had great matches with the Midnight Express. They had fun matches with the Fabulous Freebirds. With the Freebirds team of Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin. I know that when they turned heel, the Young Pistols, that's when Tracy Smothers really shined. I think Tracy Smothers, even though he can work really well as a babyface, he was just a fantastic heel. Good matches to watch. There's a fun match. This is from the Clash of Champions Fall Brawl of 1991. And again, this is not the best match in the world, but it's just a matter to look at Tracy Smothers, his heel psychology. So it's Tracy Smothers and Terry Taylor as the Tailor-Made Man, and they worked against Brian Pillman, God rest his soul, and Marcus Bagwell in his rookie year in WCW. He had only worked a few independents as, like, I think they called him the handsome stranger or whatever gimmick Marcus Bagwell had before he got to WCW in 1991. And it was a fun tag team match. The only reason why I say it was fun because Tracy stole the show just being a heel, like all the things that he did in the ring, the psychology, all the taunting, all the things that he would do with the fans. It was just so much fun to watch. And that's a match that I watch back, and now it's going to have a different connotation when I see it because I know that Tracy's gone. But those are the kinds of things that I always enjoyed because he knew how to work. He was a fantastic worker. He knew what he was doing in the ring, but he was always a great heel. Even though most people in the wrestling business will always say he's the nicest guy in the world, nobody had anything bad to say about him. It sucks that he's 58 years old. That's a young man. 58 is not old by any stretch, and unfortunately, it just always goes back. Count your blessings, and if you're a wrestling fan, understand that these people who sacrifice their lives to entertain us, they're also human beings too, and unfortunately, things like this happen. I know that the time will come for all of us at some point, but 58 is very, very young. and it's really unfortunate. You know, and there are a lot of people. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of folks talk about Tracy Smothers, and people are really broken up about it, especially those who of the era who worked with him. You know, they had nothing but good things to say. And of course, for me as a fan, you know, I followed Tracy's career in WCW, then the brief run in the WWE as Freddie Joe Floyd, which I never understood. I just thought to myself, like, well, why are they calling him Freddie Joe Floyd? Like, he's Tracy Smothers. Anybody who's a wrestling fan knows who the hell he is. He could be Tracy Smothers.
That weird era where they were bringing in all these enhancement talent that could work, that were good workers, and they were convincing these good workers, you know, hey, come in, do the jobs, but get a nice paycheck and be on your way.
Well, the way that it was working in that era is that these were all guys, you know, that were coming from Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You know, you had Tracy Smothers, Bill Irwin, my God, Tony Anthony. You know, there were a group. There was a number of those guys that came from Smoky Mountain Wrestling because of the fact that Jim Cornette had a working relationship with the WWF, and they would send those guys up there. Listen, was a guy like Tracy Smothers or Tony Anthony. You know, you may not know who Tony Anthony is, but he played T.L. Hopper. You know, the Goon, which was Bill Irwin. None of those guys, particularly in those presentations, they were not going to be stars in the WWE back in 1995-ish. It wasn't going to work. But if, you know, a guy like Tracy Smothers, I mean, I can always imagine in a different era if he and Armstrong as a tag team could have been in the WWF in like the heyday of the WWF tag teams. You know, they probably would have lost more than they won based on their size, but man, they could have had some fantastic matches against tag teams of that era because they were really good. I always say watch the match between the Midnight Express and the Southern Boys. Oh my goodness, I don't know if it's the Great American Bash. I think it's the Great American Bash in 91 or 90. Don't quote me, but I know there's a pay-per-view match between the Midnight Express and the Southern Boys. I think that was probably, if you want to look at the best example of Tracy Smothers' work in in like a mainstream audience, that might be your best bet. I know the stuff he did in ECW back in the late 90s, that was all comedy. And, you know, that's when I think that Tracy just kind of figured and he realized that if he wants to be in the business, he has to change with the times. And he just became like, he was a heel, but he was becoming a comedy heel, you know, where he's still a badass. He'll still kick your ass if you crossed him, but it was more about comedy where he's like, you know, it's more like tongue in cheek to the fans, you know, just telling like, I'm a heel, but you know, you like me and I like you kind of thing. So for a guy like Tracy Smothers, you know, gone too soon, you know, Godspeed to you, brother, man, and family, friends, fans, you know, my condolences, man. Though there really won't be another like the Wild-Eyed Southern Boy, that's for sure.
Like and subscribe, everyone.